All right. I'm told that we have a phone call right now, so
Nice.
let's take that. Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
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 How
I
are you?
had a science question for you guys.
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right.
I was wondering, what is a rain shadow?
Sure. A rain shadow. Okay, so rain shadows are really interesting, and they're definitely relevant here in Colorado, where we live next to mountains. So when we're talking about a rain shadow, we're talking about effectively a climate condition that happens thanks to mountains. So can you picture the mountains here in Colorado?
Yeah,
Okay, cool. And are you watching the show right now?
I am.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to pull up just sort of a picture of, or a diagram of what a rain shadow is, and we'll talk about why rain shadows happen and what they are. So give me just a second. Oh, here's a perfect one. Okay, cool. So if we could jump to my screen, can you see the picture I pulled up on the screen here?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what you'll notice is we have a picture of a mountain, and on half of the mountain we've got a lot of rain coming down. On the other half of the mountain, no rain. And the side with rain has lots of vegetation. The side without rain has no vegetation. And do you see the arrows, the kind of red and blue arrows that are going up and over the mountain and back down the other side?
Yeah.
Okay, so the arrows are supposed to represent airflow, and the color of the arrow represents the temperature of the airflow. So red arrows represent warm air, blue arrows represent cool air. So can you see that as the arrow on the left side of the screen moves up the mountain, it turns blue?
Yes.
Okay, so that's cooling. So we can imagine, and this is fairly true. Have you ever taken a trip up into the high mountains before?
Yes, I have.
And does it get cooler or warmer as you go up?
It gets cooler.
Yeah, it definitely does, right? So hopefully this tracks pretty well with what you understand. So are you familiar with the water cycle from science?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So in the water cycle, we have water evaporating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the stage after evaporation is called condensation. So evaporation is going to be liquid water turns into gas water, right?
Yes.
Okay, so condensation, do you know what condensation is?
Yes.
So could you describe it for me?
It's kind of like when you have a water bottle and it's got the kind of a misty
Yeah.
water droplet.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. Okay, so what you have here is you've got condensation is going from water vapor, so that water that evaporated, and it's condensing into liquid water. And the third stage of the water cycle is precipitation, which is the sciencey word for rain, right? And a simpler way to say this would be just to say that liquid water turns into water vapor, it rises up into the atmosphere, and then as it gets higher in the atmosphere, just like as you go up a mountain, that water is going to cool, and the cooling is what's going to condense the water, bring those water molecules closer together, and make them form clouds. And when the clouds are condensed enough, they will start to drip water, precipitate water, which is what we call rain, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so over just a flat area of land, there are a wide variety of reasons why air currents might rise and fall. And honestly, climate science is really interesting and also very complicated. As you probably know from watching the weather, climate scientists who are very expert are perfectly capable of getting it wrong, even when they've got lots of information. But a rain shadow is kind of a cool idea. So a mountain range, like the one we have here in Colorado, is going to force air to move up. So can you imagine, let's say, warm, moist air moving from the Pacific Ocean near California, flowing over the western United States towards Colorado?
Yeah.
Okay, so that warm air, it's coming towards Colorado, and as it gets to Colorado, it's going to hit the western slopes of the mountains, and those western slopes are going to force that warm, moist air up to high elevations. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
At the high elevations, we're going to have condensation, again, the cooling of the air. Water vapor comes together to form clouds, and that effectively, the mountains are effectively forcing the warm, moist air to become cool and condensed, and then to start precipitating. So what you get in these situations is a mountain range will typically have one side that's getting a lot of the precipitation because it's forcing the warm, moist air up, condensing it, and forcing precipitation, so that by the time those air currents reach the front range, the eastern side of the mountains, there's much less water to fall. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so we have a rain shadow actually here. We get less rain on the front range than we do on the western slopes. And there are lots of factors that affect Colorado's weather. We can definitely get big rainstorms and big snowstorms on the front range. I'm not saying we don't. But when we get warm, moist air coming from the Pacific, moving east, typically what's going to happen is most of that water that's in that moist air is going to fall on the western side of the mountains, leaving much less for the eastern side of the mountains. So we would say that here on the Front Range, we're in the rain shadow of the Colorado Rockies. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, that does.
Cool. So there's lots of examples of this all around the world. The Andes Mountains in South America creates a really powerful rain shadow in one area that creates what's called the Atacama Desert, and the Atacama Desert is one of the driest places on Earth. And if you look at deserts around the world, a lot of times, or even just dry areas around the world, you can often see that there's a mountain range near them that's causing a rain shadow and effectively creating this dryness.
Okay.
Cool. Do you have any follow-up questions?
No, I think that's it.
All right, nice. Well, hopefully that was helpful, and thanks so much for calling in.
Yeah, thank you.
That's interesting. That explains why, even though we get so much like snow and everything here, that it's so dry
Yeah.
in Denver, I guess.
Yeah, and we certainly get, there's lots of examples of warm, moist air coming up from the Gulf. And the Gulf, that will come directly at us, and so we'll get big storms from currents coming from the Gulf. But if it's a current coming east, then we're typically left without a lot of the precipitation.
that
And if
comes
you
with it.
look at like Durango's snowfall if you know where the air is coming from, compare Durango snowfalls to Denver snowfalls, and you'll often see that they double or triple or sometimes even quadruple the amount of snow that we get.
Maybe I should have moved to Durango.
If you're a skier, you should think about going to the western slopes.
All right.
That makes sense.